Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today's show is brought to you by Infinite Off-Road. Infinite Off-Road has a super crazy warranty, a 25-year, which is crazy. Most of you guys won't even have a razor in 25 years. We'll have whatever comes next. You break it, we replace it, warranty. It even covers accidental damage. You get out there, you hit it with a hammer, accident. You do whatever you need to do. That warranty is also covered on all Infinite Off-Road brand high output light bars and pods, whips, UTV mirrors and grills with built-in lighting, power controllers, wheel rings, rock lights. Yeah, the rock lights. The rock lights are awesome. They are red, green, blue, white. The first one to include white with a pure dedicated white emitter rather than mixing colors to create white. They have twice the emitters in the kit, and the output gives the brightest, richest, widest patterns. Bluetooth controller on that, handheld controller, heavy-duty aluminum case with side wire design, eliminates the need for the adapter, so you can just put it exactly where it needs to go, and you'll get exactly what you want. They have modular kits that allow you to key in a bunch of different things. They have a 4-watt and 8-watt rock light pod kit. They have a dome light with built-in switch, and HD flex strips in a variety of sizes, including they also carry red, green, blue whips. Something really important I want to say before we get into the podcast today is our Facebook contest. If you don't know, we have a Facebook, racingontherocks.com, or Racing on the Rocks on Facebook. And what we're doing on there is we're giving away a huge amount of free gear right at the end of into the Southern Rock Racing Series season. Every single week it's getting more and more. I got some stuff in the mail today from Rogers Racing. Basically at the end of the year, whoever is signed up for our newsletter, you can sign up for that on Facebook. There's a link on our Instagram as well, Racing on the Rocks. When you go sign up, you get your name in there. If you share one of our posts about the contest, it also gets your name in there for another entry. At the end of the season, we're going to look back, we're going to calculate, we're going to do a random drawing. One person is going to get everything in the entire prize kit. So please go to our Instagram, Facebook, whatever you're listening on at YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. Make sure you guys are subscribed, you like, you download, do whatever you need to do. It just really helps us build better content. It's going to be great, though. I really want someone who deserves this prize package to win. We're going to have some parts included. I'm going to throw in some parts from some of our sponsors, and we're going to have some great prizes at the end of the season. Go ahead and get your name signed up on that letter, and it will be great. Today on the podcast, we have Cody Waggoner. Cody Waggoner is the current driver of the Lasernut Racing Ultra 4 car. That is the independent suspension all the way around. Super cool. Armada engineering, design, chassis, crazy Ultra 4 car that just seems to defy current standards. It is really setting the precedence for what the future holds. So I really liked Cody. I had a great time talking to him. At the end of the podcast, we actually talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart. So please stick around, listen to it. It is really, really cool, and he actually drops some big spoilers for the upcoming year. So without further ado, Cody Waggoner.
Get a drink and gather round. Let's talk drivers. Let's talk rigs. Let's talk skill. You've got the best of the best in the off-road racing world. Have a seat at the table with us, and let's talk about racing on the rocks.
All right. Hey, Cody. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing really good. First things first, I want to say thanks for coming on the show. This is a huge thing. I actually I had planned on waiting a little while till I reached out to you. Got a few more podcasts under my belt because you were someone that I really wanted to talk to. It seems that you have taken up social media here by storm lately, and for good reason. Just having never met you, you're on the other side of the country. I'm in Tennessee. Where are you located?
Call it 25 minutes from Disneyland.
Oh, you're 25 minutes from Disneyland?
Yeah, so that kind of gives you a general idea of where I live, but I don't live by, 25 miles from Disneyland or 50 miles from the LA, south of LA.
Yeah.
I live on a little sleeping beach community.
Yeah.
Called San Clemente.
Okay.
And I pretty much have lived there since high school. And still reside there with my family.
That's awesome, man. So I have so much I want to talk to you about, so I just want to go ahead and get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
What was the first off-road rig you've ever had?
Well, it's kind of the first off-road rig I ever had was a 1971 CJ5 Jeep.
Nice.
And it's kind of a cool story.
Yeah.
I was one of my high school friends who I used to surf every day with. I mean, I used to be a surf bum, we'll call it, back in high school.
Yeah.
That's all I do was surf. He had this CJ7, and he talked about this really cool event that's out in Ocotillo Wells, Truck Haven area called TDS, Terra del Sol. It actually just happened this last weekend, and I missed it because I was at a rock crawl.
Yeah, that's all.
But I had a 1988 pickup truck, reliable pickup truck. He talked me into selling it and buying this 1971 CJ5. And it was probably, it pretty much, the rest is history. Yeah. Let's put it that way. I got a taste for off-roading, and it kind of went from there.
So,
and I still have that Jeep. I still have it.
Hey, that's impressive. I always hear that everyone either let their first Jeep go and they regret it, or they're glad that the piece of junk is gone. Like for me, for example, I had a 2003 TJ as my first car when I was 16, and I'm glad it's not around anymore. I actually ended up tracing it back on social media and found the guy that bought it. He ended up totaling it like a year after I sold it to him. Yeah, that one's hard to see, but it is what it is. But
yeah, I would have sold it years ago, but my wife said, "No, you're not selling it. You can't sell it." So I haven't driven in probably 10 years.
Yeah.
But it's in my shop, and someday we'll pull it out and cruise around in it.
Yeah. So it's funny. I've heard every. Let me just phrase it this way. I haven't heard someone's wife so far say that they should keep a rig. So I think that's pretty interesting so far. So you're the first for that one for sure. But going back to it, you mentioned TDS. You're obviously on the West Coast. With your Jeep, were you guys more trail riding? Was it rock crawling competitions? Like, what route did you go first?
Well, when I first bought it, it was a little built, had some bigger tires, no power steering, nice. Posi traction front end, and we went out there, and there's these really cool notches. It's kind of like, just picture like a notch or V-notch with soft dirt, and you can take your Jeep and go through these things and literally lay the Jeep on its side, and it would keep going. And I'm like, man, that looks like fun. I want to be able to do that. So to be able to do that, you had to get a locker. So I went to a guy named Jason Bunch, owner of Tri-County Gear in Pomona, and he put a Muncie SM420 transmission in, which is real low gears.
Yeah.
And a locker in my rear end. And we went out there and we started doing these really cool maneuvers and stuff. And he taught me how to do it. And it's a funny story. I spent enough money with him. Now, mind you, I'm like 18 or 17 or 18 years old.
Yeah.
I spent enough money with him that he took me out to the Hammers in '97.
Oh, wow.
So I went out to the Hammers for this customer appreciation run for the first time to the Hammers.
With
And fell in love. We went up Sledgehammer, which everyone knows about.
Right.
And he literally walked me through the entire trail with no power steering and an open front end on 33-inch tires with an 83-inch wheelbase. I had to learn how to wheel because if you have no lockers, you have to keep the wheels on the ground.
Yeah.
Once a wheel goes up in the air, you need to get it back to the ground because the locking, the traction shifts. So he taught me how to wheel, and then competitions started coming around in the late 90s, and I got a little taste of that.
Yeah. So one thing I want to mention is, all the time, whether it's on social media or out at the parks with any of my buddies, you always hear guys, they want, the biggest, the baddest, latest technology, all the bells and whistles. But there really is something to be said for learning on a vehicle that doesn't have all those things, because it really does make you a better driver. I know
Absolutely.
A lot of the time I interview guys who, I've done a lot of side-by-side interviews here lately, and a lot of the guys who are, at the top of the ring for the competitive racing right now, they all ran 800s, which is the 50-inch wide, basically, nothing against Polaris, but like they're pieces of junk. And they ran all those guys, they ran the 800s for as long as they could, and now they're some of the best drivers now that they have the better vehicles. So, just hearing you say that and knowing where this conversation ends by, seeing your social media and just kind of the things you get yourself into now, I can see how having a vehicle like that just made you that much better of a driver.
Yeah, and, I think that's a great point to touch on. A lot of people, if they go to my social media now and look at it, they don't know the whole story. They don't know that, I used to go out to the desert and sleep in the back of my pickup truck because I loved it so much, or a tent, and had a beat up piece of crap Jeep, and we just kind of grew from there. We got something a little better, and then a little better, and then a little better to what we have now, which I'm very fortunate to be able to do what I do and have what I have.
Yeah, and so that's why we're doing the podcast, so you can get a chance to tell everyone exactly how it all happened, and they can go out and do it themselves. So
absolutely,
you mentioned that you had one rig, you had another. Again, we've got a lot to cover, so if you want to keep it short or go into depth as long as you want, I've got nothing but time. But
right.
What are those rigs you had?
Well, so the 71 Jeep, when I was 18, I had that, and we did a lot of trailer wheeling in 97, 98, 99, going to the hammers, doing all the, claw hammer and sledgehammer and jackhammer and outer limits and spooners. And like I was saying earlier, the competitions were huge back then, with all the guys, the Currys and the Kevin Hawkins and Tracy Jordan and John Bunner and all those guys. And it was a full-on, show. And I was like, man, that is really cool. But they never had a modified stock class. So in 2001, they came out with the modified stock class. I was like, okay, I think I can, let's go give it a shot. So I asked my dad to spot for me. We went down to Las Cruces, New Mexico, and gave it a shot. My little Jeep with the smallest, shortest wheelbase with leaf springs, mind you, leaf springs under the axles, not on top, where I was competing against Joe Shum, from Twisted Customs, Frank Curry. It was really cool, and we did really well. I think we got like second or third place. I beat Frank Curry, and I was like, wow, man, we might be okay at this.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So,
and this is all in the technical rock crawling, kind of like what you do now in the We Rock series, correct?
Yeah, the technical rock crawling hardcore competitions pretty much is exactly what we do today. We're just in a different class, and they actually still have sportsman classes. Yeah. For the it was actually pretty cool this weekend. I saw a gal I haven't seen for years, Kathy Crook. I used to compete against her back in the day. She still had her same Jeep out there competing. She got first place in her class, and it's just cool to go out and compete and have fun and see people that you haven't seen or you would never see that enjoy it as much as we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So from 2001 to 2006, I ran that little CJ5, and we won a lot of competitions going against Jeff Mello. He was a fierce competitor of ours. Jason Shearer, who I'm sure everyone knows, just won King of the Hammers.
Yeah, absolutely.
He had a little baby blue CJ5 back in the day, and we used to compete against him. He was just as good back then as he is now. Yeah. And he still has his Jeep, which is cool. We got sponsors, and it was a really good gig. We got a huge sponsor called Detroit Locker, and they were sponsoring us. And after 5 years of doing it, the competition there wasn't as much competition as I wanted. I wanted to see if we could get to the next step, if we can compete against the best. So I hit up Mitch Guthrie, which I'm sure you've heard of Mitch Guthrie Jr., who just won King of the Hammers. I hit up Mitch Guthrie. He had the first Shannon Campbell moon buggy, and it was for sale. So I went to him and bought that, and we went into the limit class in 2006 and competed against the best from 6, 7, 8, and 9. And did really well. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many championships and events we won, or we were in the top podium spot. Yeah. But it was a great run from 2001 to 2006 with the little Jeep, and then from 2006 to 2009 with the moon buggy. in 2009 things were kind of, there wasn't much competition. I thrive on competitions. Like the event I went to this weekend, if Jesse Haynes and Jeff McKinley and Justin Kallman and Matt Messer, you know, if those guys weren't there, and I mean, if they weren't there to compete against, there's no reason to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back in 2008 and 9, there was actually one point that rock crawling was kind of at a low. I went to an event. I competed against myself.
Yeah.
I drove all the way to Farmington, Mexico, and we got first. But
there you go.
We also got last. So.
Oh yeah.
So in 2009, I really wanted to. I just felt right to get out of it and focus more on my business, Lasernut, because that Lasernut started in 2007.
Okay.
So I just got out of competition rock crawling, just focused on Lasernut, which Lasernut is just as my dad calls it, a glorified welding shop.
Okay.
It's a little more than that, but we have lasers that cut out metal parts.
Yeah.
And then we did that for a few years, and then people would ask us hey, can you bend the part?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we can bend the part. And then we started bending the parts, and then they asked if we can weld the parts. And so now we actually do a full line of product for anyone who comes through the door. We don't make any of our own parts to sell. They're all for
other manufacturers
that sell the product.
Okay.
And
before we go any further into your business, I actually, on your Instagram, I think I found your Jeep was yellow. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so there is a picture up there. It's actually didn't have to do too much looking. It's from March 17th of last year, and I'm looking at it, and you're not kidding. You were rolling with some we'll call it dated technology, and it'd be nice. So, you know, a lot of guys that listen right now, we're all East Coast based primarily. The idea of a competitive rock crawling competition, you know, for those who aren't aware, it's, from my understanding, I could be wrong. Again, I have done very little research into this just because it's so foreign. But you guys have a laid out course, essentially with cones, which would be like checkpoints that you have to weave your way through, and the checkpoints are in some of the most obscure locations, on the most off-camber, just unbelievable positions that you think you can get a vehicle in. You know, when you're learning how to drive like that, you know, obviously your Jeep didn't have four-wheel steer. Your Jeep had an open front end. You know, how do you learn how to drive like that and be so delicate?
Well, back in the day, when I had that little Jeep, the biggest thing is not breaking parts. I didn't want to be that guy on the trail that was broke. Because every time you go on that Jeep run or run, there was that guy or a gal that, you know, they break on the trail, and then you sit there for 4 hours welding it up or fixing it or running back to camp. And I never wanted to be that guy. I actually had anxiety of being that guy.
Yeah,
so the only way not to be that guy is to make sure your Jeep's ready to go before you get out there, and to take care of it and get through the trails and pick the line. And then if you need a stack of rock, stack of rock. You know, you don't have to have big balls and think you're macho and an ego that, I don't need any rocks. I'm gonna get up it one way or another. Well, if you don't get up it and you break and we have to sit there for 4 hours, I mean, how I mean, what's the point? So I've always learned, you know, I had a Dana 44 in the rear of that little Jeep, and I had a Dana 30 until I upgraded to a 44. But we always had these little diffs, and just, you know, always ran the best parts and always maintenance their stuff. After every competition, we'd pull the axles out and check them, and we'd always run the best little, you know, Chromoly 300M axles with the CTM U joints. Yeah. And, you know, it has a lot to do with prep. I mean, you got to prep your stuff. A lot of people go to competitions, and maybe they prepped it, maybe they didn't. I don't know. They'd always break a lot. So you would win a lot of times just because they didn't prep their stuff. Yeah.
So you mentioned that whole mentality of, you know, I have to keep my machine together versus the mentality of like, I'm going to get it up to the top of that hill if we pull it by a tow truck. You know, it's kind of one of those things that out east versus west, the riding is so different because at the East, if you ever were to break apart, if you ever were to do anything like that, the truck is just, at most a half mile away in most situations. When you're out West, you guys are potentially miles and miles away from your, whether your tow truck, or if you don't have a tow truck at all, you're miles away from an auto parts store that may have your part. That obviously plays a big factor into how you drive out there. But going into that, and after what you just said right there, we move into the moon buggy days. When you went from a Jeep to an actual dedicated moon buggy, obviously a moon buggy center of gravity is substantially lower, but I mean, I really can't think of anything that is the same when it comes to a full body Jeep versus a moon buggy. Can you talk about the differences and what it was like switching over?
Yeah, well, it's night and day. You have this moon buggy that it's a mid-engine. You have you're so low to the ground, you actually feel like the tires are above you. Nice. And it can climb anything, and it can drop off virtually anything. It was huge, especially. You can't really break anything because it had a little Ecotech motor in it, so there was never enough horsepower too. You just had a lot of torque, and it was different. There was sometimes you got to put the foot to the floor, and it'll bounce up in one way or another, and that's how you got up a lot of the things. Because back in the day, they had these 10, 15, 20-foot walls that you had to shoot up. Mm-hmm. I remember this one time we went to Texas, and Marty Hart used to compete. He's a professional off-road racer, and he had a moon buggy, and he shot up this wall, literally just shot up it, and landed on top like a dirt bike. I'm like, holy crap, I'm going to have to do that. That's the only way to get up that wall. And we did it, and I have a picture that I smile at every time, where the buggy's just 2 feet in the air. Yeah. Not like the rock bouncers. Those guys are insane. I want to get back to see one of those events. But holy crap, those guys. Yeah. And when I went to the shootout at King of the Hammers this year and saw them just shoot up the face of that wall, that was pretty impressive. I was, my hat's off to those guys.
Yeah.
But, it's a different way of wheeling, different style.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I would imagine so. So there's a lot I want to say there. We'll come back to the rock bouncers because I actually have a very interesting proposition for you coming up soon. But you say you have these little mid-size, or not mid-size, but where's the engine located in the chassis of a moon buggy?
Hold on one sec. I got a highway patrol. Hold on one sec.
You're good. for those who didn't hear our previous conversation, before we started the podcast, Cody's actually driving. And,
I'm back.
Okay, there he is, and he's back. But the design of these moon buggy chassis are obviously way different than anything else. Really anything else in the world. What's the benefit of having the engine placement where it is? Where do you like to have your engine placement? Why is it built the way it's built? Obviously, it's low so you can climb, but everything else is kind of a question mark.
Yeah, for dodging cones, you pretty much you want to have the best visibility possible, and I feel a moon buggy is the way to go. So you're actually, you're technically riding on the front axle. Your feet are almost above the front axle.
That's awesome.
It's like a lazy boy. It's so cool. That's why I let anyone and everyone who wants to sit in it or drive it around. I let this guy, Mitch Hoover, he was out at the competition this last weekend, and I'm like, hop in it, take it for a spin. He almost shit his pants. It was hilarious, but I think he wants to buy one now. But, yeah. It's an experience that no one, you have to experience it, just like I'm sure the rock bouncers and Ultra 4 and everything else is the same type of experience. But it's a great visibility, low center of gravity. All the controls are right there. There's not a second seat. It's a purpose-built car that it's meant for business. It just works. It's light. A lot of people don't know it, but I run lead shot in the front of my tires. Wow. To get the weight ratio just right. So you can imagine, hundreds of pounds in each of those front tires that just keep the weight even lower to the ground, and it makes a big difference. And the motor in the back. What's great about the motor in the back is a lot of the competitions. There's drop offs. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, there's 5 15, 20-foot drop-offs that you'd have to do a nose wheelie and gas out of to keep from rolling forward. And having the engine in the back, it makes a big difference on those drops. And when you have it in the front, when the weight drops off, and then the light back kicks up, you flip over. Having it in the back, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, so, you mentioned a 15 and 20-foot drop. What's the wheelbase of an average moon buggy?
The average moon buggy, I say, is about around 110 inches.
Okay.
Some guys are a little longer, some a little shorter, but 110, 114.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, rock bouncers are somewhere in that ballpark. I could be making it up, but I've heard 120 around there for the rock bouncers. So that all sounds right. That sounds good. So you got in this moon buggy. You started having great success. What came after the period of success for the moon buggy?
Well, from 2006 to 2009, I had the Shannon Campbell moon buggy,
right.
And then I got out of it for 4 years, and I went back to trail wheeling. I went to the Hammers. I had a kid, and did a lot of family wheeling. I bought a twisted custom 4-seater.
Yeah, there you go.
I've always wanted a twisted custom buggy, so we bought one, and we did all the trails at the Hammers and made a lot of trails. Had a really, really good time, and then. So to keep going with the history, I never went to King of the Hammers. I made it a point not to ever go to King of the Hammers. Well, in 2013, I went to King of the Hammers, and that was the year Randy Slauson won.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, I can do this. So I had Randy Slauson build 2 identical bombers, one for myself and one for my dad. And 2014, decided to race King of the Hammers. We got 18th. At our first race ever.
Woo,
and then the next year, we raced again and got 7th. And that's when I said, I will never beat Randy Slauson in his car.
Right.
I love the bomber. My dad still has it. I use it for pre-running.
Yeah.
It's a solid car. It works really, really good. And if you have the balls to go fast, especially when it drives with the steering the way it is, more power to you. But I'm a really conservative driver at going fast. I'm not real good at going fast. I'm getting better. And that's when I decided that, it's time to build something that will give me an advantage. And that's when I hit up Armada Engineering, and they built the Culture 4 car I have now. Yeah,
so I want to talk about the bomber, because it's actually funny. I had a little bit of questions I wanted to ask you before, and one question I was debating on asking you was, your 4400 car that you have now that we'll talk about here in a little while, how does it compare to a bomber? Because a lot of guys out east, essentially off-road, actually built or had a race team that went to King of Hammers a few years ago, and they ran one of Randy's cars, and I don't even remember if they finished or not. Long story short, the bomber is such I want to say iconic Ultra 4 car. You have the lines that just remind you of a race car, but again, you have solid axle front and rear. Sometimes, there's a lot of variability in the suspension people use for them. You going out there and having exposure to King of Hammers, what was the bomber like for you? Going to run the Hammers in a completely solid axle car, how did it feel when you first got it versus that moment when you decided, I'm going to go get a different car, I'm going to go get something more advanced?
When the bomber, I knew when I was having 2 of them built, one for my dad and I, that it wasn't the that's when IFSs were starting to come out. But again, I always take baby steps. I didn't want to go spend double the money on an IFS car.
I completely understand.
And a solid axle car. So we got the solid, and again, I pre-ran in that car, and it is the car just works. There's no guessing, there's no thinking. You can go in the desert, you can go in the rocks. It's reliable. We really got the car faster after a few years of shock tuning and doing some adjustments. But it was just to a point that I couldn't go any faster with the full hydraulic steering setup. I'd have to go to something different, and I just, I had the opportunity to do something different. But I still love the bomber. It's a great car. Rock crawling, it's amazing. And I looked at it this year. I remember, 4 years ago there was a lot of bombers in the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there was, and Randy, he can easily win it. The guy's a fast, and he doesn't stop. He just keeps going. He's a whole nother level. But if unless he breaks.
Yeah.
But if you look, the bombers are kind of gone. I mean, there's a few people that have them, but it's IFS. That's the independent front, and eventually it'll probably be independent rear. It's going to be a Razor or a Can-Am on steroids. I mean, it's amazing what that technology has really turned. What people are doing for the Ultra 4, going to the Ultra 4.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And a lot of the people listening, they trail ride and they wheel solid axle cars. When you say, that the bomber was great for rock crawling, the bomber, I would assume would be great for just everyday trail riding, could climb what you need. If you can remember back on your experience in your Jeep, I know that this is comparing apples and oranges, but going from a Jeep like that and having a bomber, other than having, almost every part probably built more sturdy, but going from a full-size Jeep to a bomber, is that even comparable, or is it just unparalleled difference?
It's a completely different. It's completely different.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, I have my Jeep, but am I gonna go drive that thing? It is the most uncomfortable. I get sometimes I sit in it and I can't believe I actually drove it where the pedals were. And I mean, it was. But then again, I didn't know any better. I was a young dumb kid in my 20s, trying climbing up these things that the Jeep had no business even climbing.
Right.
Yeah, it's a night. It's like going from to do a comparison from like a Honda Civic to an SL 550 Mercedes Benz.
Okay.
There's no. And then if you go from the SL 550 to I don't know for the I've never had anything more than that. But if you go to a Lamborghini, I don't know if you had an IFS car. It's just a completely different levels.
So that was actually my next question was, skipping over the bomber and the experience there, because you said you pre-ran the bomber this year, correct?
What's that?
Did you pre-run the bomber this year?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, we pre-ran the desert section this year at the bomber.
Okay, so you still got the bomber. Everything's good with that. Moving on to your 4400 car, I want to start from the ground up because, again, this is one of the most advanced cars. When you see it, you know that it's different. You know that, it looks like a complete work of engineering. So the guys over at Armada, why did you choose them? Tell me a little bit about them, because I can promise that not a lot of my listeners have probably even heard of them.
Yeah, so the way it worked is, again, being very fortunate to be able to laser cut parts for a lot of my people I've off-road for many years, and being in the community, and you build different relationships, and Armada Engineering was one of those. We've been cutting their parts out for years, and they build a trophy truck for Adam Lund, and they're doing a lot of 6100 trucks now. And I called them one day and said, "Hey, you guys ever thought of maybe building an Ultra 4 car?" And they're like, "Yeah, that'd be kind of cool."
Yeah.
And then their big thing was we want it to be different. We want it to be the next step. So we went over there and we sat down and we talked and came up with a plan that we decided we were going to do independent front and rear, which I think there might have been one or two that have ever done that. Mm-hmm. And then we decided to put portals on it, so we had great ground clearance and make it as light as possible, which that was kind of a detriment to over the years of getting this car where it needs to be, because we made it a little too light.
So when you're saying like chassis design, you make it too light. How does that hurt you?
Yeah, so what a lot of guys don't know, when desert racers desert race, they don't go through big boulders and smash into them. You can't take an Indy car and go take it to the dirt and try jumping it. You know, I mean, I look at that car as it was built like an Indy car, as light as possible, sexy. I mean, that was another thing. I wanted it sexy because everything has to be sexy. And, well, to get things sexy, it's not functional. So, you know, the radiators were all laid down in the back, and the thing would overheat in the beginning, and we kind of got them up higher, and now they're actually up in the airflow, and there's no issues. The tubes, a lot of tubes were a little light, and when you hit a rock, when you land your entire chassis, so you don't have a diff to hit, what do you hit? You're going to hit the chassis.
Right, you're going to hit that belly.
You hit the bulkhead, or you hit the tube underneath, it bends it, or it cracks it, or we had a lot of issues with that.
What material is the chassis built out of?
You know, I think it was 1/8 inch, and I think now we're 1/8 inch thick.
Okay.
And now it's, I believe, 3/16 a lot of the tubes.
Okay.
And that solved a lot of the issue. And we had to redo the bulkheads. The bulkheads, again, were also way too light. A lot of cracks, and we got those fixed. We tried this shock that was supposed to be the baddest and greatest shock. And it came to find out it wasn't the baddest, greatest shock, and there was no one to tune the shock. So we didn't need sway bars with that shock. So
do you want to say what the baddest shock is?
Well, the baddest shock's Fox.
Absolutely.
So Fox is definitely the shock that I choose. I've had Kings. I had Kings on my bomber, and they're a great company also. But to me, it's all in what. You know, I went out with a Rebe, who's a great guy, knows how to tune, but some people, they're only going to give you so much. You know, other people are going to get more and be treated differently, and we definitely felt that we needed to switch our shocks. That was when Wayne was working for Fox, and he really helped us out a lot. And now the Hartman's there, which he has a lot of knowledge, and seems like a lot of people are happy with him, but I'm behind Fox 110%, and I like that company, and I've been teaming up with Wayne. Wayne doesn't actually work for Fox anymore. He works for Alltech Motorsports, or he's the owner of Alltech, and he's actually was my co-driver last year.
Oh, that's awesome.
At King of the Hammers, which really helped because he's had a lot of experience with co-driving, and he actually set up this system in cab where you can adjust the shocks on the fly, which was amazing, you know, in the desert / the rocks, because he can tighten it up and loosen it and get the suspension right where it needs to be in certain sections of the race. So that was really cool. So one thing, I'm not your typical go-fast racer. I'm not going to piss blood at the end of the race. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to hurt myself. There's more to life than just destroying my body and, you know, not enjoying life later, you know, later
I agree
being all
completely.
broke apart. That's why I never got on motorcycles. I was always afraid I would hurt myself. You always see my friends breaking their bones or doing that kind of stuff. And actually, that kind of hurt. I know that hurt me. If I was to ride motorcycles when I was younger, I knew it would definitely help with my race program where it is now to go fast, because if you know how to ride a bike, you know how to hit the whoops and the jumps and the turns and all that. So I know that definitely is a hindrance on it, but that's what I choose, and that's where I am today. So actually, Fox, that's who I go. I swear by. The same with BF Goodrich tires. They've been really good to me. They've never been like a true sponsor, as in like I got shitload of money, but it's always been the best product. I had good years back in the day when I had my little CJ5, and that tire worked great. And I remember that BF Goodrich wanted us to come on board, and we actually put the BFGs on the little Jeep, and the tires wouldn't work. The tires back then would not work with a sprung under Jeep. It was crazy, and I was losing tons of money because whenever you won, you got like I don't know, $3,000 or $4,000. It was, and I was like, man, Goodyear wasn't doing shit for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So eventually switched to BFGs when I got the moon buggy in 2006, and we've been on BFGs since.
So when you say you switched to BFGs on your moon buggy, I'm assuming, and for those who don't know, you should assume as well, all moon buggies seem to run the same tire, that those are red label BFG crawlers, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And for those who also don't know, the red label is essentially BF Goodrich's version of the sticky tire that's offered by Interco and all that. All brands, typically, any race brand at least, will have some sticky compound of their tire that's just a little bit, to not be so obvious, a little bit stickier and will connect with the rock a little bit better. But going, I'm going to roll back to your chassis for 1 second. Armada Engineering, they do everything by hand, correct, as far as welding and everything like that?
Welding-wise, they do. The chassis, one thing that's really cool about the car was CNC computer controlled.
Okay.
So all the carbon fiber was a robot made the foam, and then they with the CNC, and then they laid the carbon fiber over the foam. The portals are all out of one solid piece of aluminum.
That's amazing.
70-75 aluminum and made the portals. The chassis was all laser cut tube and CNC bent. All the A-arms, the upper A-arms were out of a solid piece of aluminum and, CNC cut out. Mm-hmm. All the lower arms were all laser cut, actually, on our machines and bent. The entire everything's TIG welded. This one guy, at Armada, he's an amazing TIG welder. I mean, I still look at the TIGs that he did, and you just go, how did he do it?
I've seen pictures, and it's phenomenal. It's unreal. It's
pretty insane. And that's one thing where that car, everything about it is the best, and it's just a great car.
Yeah, and one reason I wanted to highlight your chassis so much was, you can't beat a dead horse enough, and the foundations of your car, the things that really make your car work well, are the most plain and simple things. And when you take something plain and simple like a chassis and turn it into a technological work of art with hours and hours of hand work put into it, tons of laser work, everything you can think of, you really end up with a machine that has the platform to be unimaginable. So I just really wanted to spend some time talking about that because, again, if you haven't seen it, we'll give Instagrams and Facebooks at the end. Just make sure you see a picture of the chassis bear. It is truly just something, to marvel at. But to go back to your tires, I have something that leads to that I think all of us are curious about. What size tire did you run on your 4400 car this year?
A 40-inch.
Okay, so I noticed that there was multiple people who had, I don't know if they had actually tossed it around, but BF Goodrich makes a 42-inch KR2. Is that right?
Yes.
So why does no one run a 42 versus a 40? Because it seems like there wouldn't be that much difference.
Yeah, I think the only guy that I know that runs a 42-inch is Paul Horschel.
Okay.
And I've asked him about it because, I want any advantage I could get. And
Absolutely.
He says that he swears by it. I've actually thought about running possibly a 42. I just, it just got to make the change. I think it's a 20-inch rim, so it'd be different rims.
Yeah, it would be. I didn't think about that.
But I know, I think the other issue is in Ultra 4 to do the series, there's a lot of short course racing, and I think the smaller tire is actually probably better than the bigger tire. And I know if you get a bigger tire, especially in the short course, you're going to need more horsepower.
Yep.
In the short course, so now you need a bigger motor.
Yep.
So there's a lot of different gearing, and it's just
it's a balance.
There's more stuff than just I'm just going to go to a bigger tire.
Yeah, a lot of guys I always hear that bigger tire is better, this and that, and the reason I wanted to ask is it opens the whole debate of short course versus the track you're running on, the power versus the gearing, things like that. And a lot of times people build their rigs around what tire they want to run, and sometimes it's just not the most logical way to build a rig.
Yeah.
But so this is something that I want to talk to you about, and I have had huge questions. Obviously, that 40-inch tire is wrapped around a beautifully copper-plated wheel. What's going on with that?
Well, when I had Jesse Haynes build me my moon buggy that I have now, I wanted to be like no other moon buggy. So I asked him to TIG weld it. It was his first car he's ever TIG welded, or at least, yeah, I think that's what he said. I think it's his last car he'll ever TIG weld.
Only one.
But once you TIG weld it, you get a car that's TIG welded. It's hard to go back to a MIG weld because the TIGs are so much pleasant looking and everything else. So he did that, and then I was telling I'm like, how am I going to bling this thing out? It's hard to bling out a moon buggy.
Yeah.
And then I said the only way to do it is the rims. I mean, the wheels, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, sure.
And I was just, I think I saw some copper-plated motorcycle wheels. I'm like, man, no one has ever copper-plated a wheel in like rock crawling. So I hit up this chroming company that does, chrome plating and copper plating, and had them done, and the rest is history. It's kind of the signature, that I did my Ultra 4 in copper plate, and it's just what it is now.
I would definitely say it's definitely a signature look for you guys. Just looking at it.
And the thing is also you see the race teams, they go to red and they go to green and they go to blue, and it's powder coated and it's this and it's that, and it's just the same old stuff.
Right,
and like no one's doing anything different. I guess what really gets me off, or whatever you want to call it, is thinking outside the box and doing something different.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I really like.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really like something, what's next, not the status quo. I mean, I did the status quo when I had my little Jeep, and now I've been very fortunate to be able to be creative, think outside the box, and do, keep the sport going and growing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I went to the rock crawl this weekend, and did I ever think that the guy who actually beat me was going to have the same exact chassis as me? The same, and I'm not going to say the same exact car because it is a little different, but pretty much the same car.
Right.
I mean, I can see that class actually being kind of a unlimited spec class, and everyone's going to be running these Jesse Haynes chassis with portals and rear steer, and it's going to be like an unlimited spec class. I never thought I'd get to that, but if I didn't have that car built, we wouldn't have had people buying cars and getting into it, or letting people drive the car. I mean, how many people let other people that you don't even know? I didn't even know how many people I would drive my Moo Buggy, but they aren't going to break it. Everyone's all worried they're going to break it, or I don't have the money to pay for it. I'm like, you're not going to break it. If you break it, it was already broken.
Right.
And it's just really cool to get people excited about doing something that they might not ever have been able to do, and someday maybe they'll want to get into the sport and they'll be more competitors and keep the sport going. I
think that mentality that you have in that regard is just, it's unheard of, obviously, and more so than anything, it's so important to the sport. I know a lot of guys who trail ride, a lot of guys who, are just your everyman. They will go to these races, they'll look at vehicles, they'll walk around, and they'll think to themselves, wow, man, I'd never be able to have something like this. And just giving someone the chance to ride with you, you take it a step further. You're like, hey, take it out, let's go. That right there is enough inspiration, in my opinion, to get someone to really solidify plans to make it happen for themselves. So from my team... Yeah,
especially kids.
Absolutely.
I love kids, 10, 12-year-olds hop in the car and burn the boom buggy around, and I mean it's just amazing. I mean, they're going to remember that and
forever.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And again, I just want to say like a huge thanks because more people that we can bring to our sport, the more popular it gets, and it's better for everybody. No one loses when our sport gets more popular. So back to your 4400 car. Do you have what's the power plant in that vehicle?
It's an LSX. It's just a LSX.
Okay. Is there a motor you've run before that you like better, or is that the cream of the crop for you?
That's just the motor. It's nothing big. It's only a 650 horsepower.
Nothing big.
Reliable. It's very reliable. I don't want something I have to see. A little more info about myself. If you ask me about specifications and what size cam and what's my any of that information, I don't know any of that. It just doesn't do anything for me. I know a lot of guys that build their cars and have their cars. They know the gear ratios.
Right.
And I've never been that guy. So I did when I had my little Jeep, but now I really enjoy driving, and I focus on that. But it's just a reliable motor. It was built by CBM Motorsports, so I've been really good friends with Chris Bland there. He's the owner, or one of the owners there. And again, we laser cut parts for him, and a lot of people outside looking in. The good thing that so they understand is having relationships with people that I'm able to do work for. You're able to be able to do things. Let's call it as in motors and chassis and shocks and tires and all of that. It's not like I'm able to write a check. Yeah. I'm not a BJ Baldwin, we'll call it.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Creative thinking is what I've always done, and to be able to get where I'm at. And
yeah, absolutely. I think the older I get, and for everybody else listening who's young, the older you get, the more you realize it's a lot more of who you know and being a nice person and just being a good human being than necessarily what you know. I think there's a lot that's said in just how you treat other people, and obviously you treat people well enough that they wanna help you out and return favors. So I think that's awesome. But anything else about your 4400 cars, like specifications wise, you want to talk about before we go into your race season and what you have planned for this year?
We haven't really talked about the 4400 car. It's just a really cool car. It's surreal. It's the difference between a solid axle and an independent car is a solid axle beats you up. I mean, it pretty much just goes up and down, and for layman's terms, and where the independent. I mean, it's independent. Randy Slauson took the car for a spin a few months before King of the Hammers, and he's like, you want me to tell you what I like about the car? And I'm like, sure. I don't know where the tires are. Really? I don't know where the tires are. He's like, I really like knowing where my tires are. Well, in a solid axle car, you know where the tires are because you feel where the tires are at. Right. Where the independent, you don't know where they're at. You kind of have to it floats. Yeah. And what's really cool in the rocks is, in the rocks, it beats you up left to right. I mean, you'll just be jostling the whole time, where the independent, it doesn't beat you up at all. It just literally floats over the rocks. And a lot of people say, oh, it'll never work. It doesn't work in the rocks, and it's far from the truth. It's a razor on steroids. Yeah, and, so it just works.
So I'm a razor guy, and I see a full size rig as obviously there's bigger tires, so there's more ground clearance. But most importantly, I see that there's bigger suspension. So you have more suspension to tune, more suspension to play with, more travel. It seems like my razor ride's pretty good as is, and I'm on stock turbo shocks. And I just imagine something that's as well tuned as an IFS and IRS 4400 car. And I, just out of completely selfishness, I would love to just be in the car as you're going through rocks, be in the car as you're running through the desert, and just be able to see and feel what the pinnacle of well-designed suspension feels like. But what, other than you just saying you wanted to build something different, what was the draw for you to design a completely independent, all the way around car?
The advantage of having no diffs to worry about in the rocks, because all the trails are designed to where you have diff hangers, and if you have no diffs, you have the advantage to just go right over those lines.
Now, when you say no diffs, you just mean the actual physical big chunk that sits right in the middle and then grabs onto everything underneath it, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And
then
go ahead.
When my moon buggy has diffs, but they're all the way tucked next to the tires, so technically they're well, actually, no, I'm thinking of my old moon buggy. Well, now I have portals, and the diffs are so small, it's not. But my old moon buggy, the diff used to be way tucked. I had a little shaft on one side and a really long shaft on the other, going to the diffs.
Right.
And there was no diffs, and that made a huge advantage. So, the independent, you with the portals, you're able to just go over the rocks that you typically get hung up on, and in the desert, it's amazing. You go as fast as you want. I mean, we were hitting 3 to 4 foot whoops. I got it up to I think 675, 65, 70, where Wayne was able to get it up to 85, and Shannon Campbell or Shearer or Healy, they'd be doing 120 in my car. It's an amazing car. It's just, and you'll never see the full potential from myself because again, I'm only going to go so fast that I'm comfortable going.
Yeah.
And that's just how I am.
No, trust me. I mean, you're in good company here. You mentioned earlier that a lot of these guys who rock bounce and a lot of the guys in the side by side world of rock bouncing, they're nuts. They are crazy. And ever since I've started going to these races, not to insult anyone, and I don't mean as an insult, but sometimes you got to think, man, do I have more brains or balls? And I think a lot of those guys, man, they've just got a big pair of nuts because they are not afraid of anything. And
what's really cool, well, not what's cool, but in the rock bouncing, and I don't know all the names, but I do follow Tim Cameron, and I'll tell you that guy, he is so calculated in throttle control and how he goes and attacks the hill and turns. It's an amazing. I mean, that is, I don't think there's a lot of Tim Camerons. Maybe there is, but it just seems like he built his own car and the whole thing, but he really knows how to do it. I mean, the guy is like a professional versus, some guys that get lucky and bounce up the hill or whatnot. And I'm sure there's a skill there set. I don't want anyone to take it wrong, but there's finesse versus, hitting the throttle and closing your eyes.
Yeah, no, trust me, I've hit the throttle and closed my eyes quite a few times, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, Tim especially is a great one to use as an example because he. There's very few people that have as much success as Tim does, but after being around the Southern Rock Racing Series for as long as I have been, there's no one that drives like Tim. It's different. It's like he sees the hills differently, and it's funny. I've spoken to a few of his friends that will go ride with him or just go hang out with him, and the one thing that they've told me is that he physically can walk and can walk, run, jump up and down a hill just as efficiently as he can in his buggy. And I heard one guy called him a little billy goat because he can run up a hill, not be winded, and it's just like effortless for him.
Really?
It's the weirdest thing because when I heard it, I was like, man, that's got to translate over to the driving because I whenever I see a hill, I'm trying to sit there and think about the best way up, and I'm sure that he sees something completely different, and obviously that comes with years of experience, but there's something in that brain that just clicks for hill climbing.
Yeah, and I remember when he drove the Bomber, out the King of the Hammers. Yep. I think he finished, or maybe he didn't.
I don't remember.
And he I don't think it was his thing, and they were thinking of doing an IFS, but I remember him going the back door and just finessing, trying the harder line. And I think he actually rolled, but you could just see his brain thinking and how he, it's just the calculations going on how to do it. But it's pretty cool. There's only so many guys like that out there.
Yeah, but to loop it back to what we were talking about, I completely understand that, sometimes the car will outdrive the driver. I say all the time that my Razor will go places I don't want to take it. And, I would imagine something like what you have in your 4400 car. I wouldn't be surprised if you told me it could hit well into the hundreds, above 130 plus if you really were into it. But, I definitely understand wanting to be conservative because you're one rock away from something rough. But
yeah, and that's the other part of the car. We've had I'm not gonna say so many issues, but we've had so many bugs working out. Being that it's a car that, which again, I sometimes wonder what the hell was I thinking.
Sure.
I've always been one of those guys to buy a car that's proven.
Right.
That's why I bought Mitch Guthrie's Moon Buggy. That's why I bought Twisted Custom car. That's why I bought Bomber. I mean, it's been proven. It works, and there's not much you have to do to it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think outside the box and use something completely different, there's going to be issues. And we definitely have worked through a lot of the issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I can think about King of the Hammers this year. The first lap, the desert loop, the 92-mile desert loop,
mm-hmm.
We didn't push it. We were just cruising,
mm-hmm.
doing our thing, and we were about a half hour off pace. And then we came at the second lap, and I lost the brakes, and come to find out my pivot bolt broke on my upper A-arm going to my portal, and I thought we fixed it because we did some, we did a stronger piece there, but we didn't. But if I would have pushed it harder, we would have been broke at, the joke is a mile marker 5, because that's how we did the year before. But it's I think I've heard Eric Miller say it before. Where it's in nutrition, especially King of the Hammers, you kind of get in a groove and save your stuff and get all the fluids warmed up, and make sure the car is ready to go for lap 2 and especially lap 3. But I'll tell you, Jason Shearer and Eric Miller, and I don't know who got third. I think it was one of the Campbells. They were on a whole nother level this year. Amazing, to do that race in 6.5 hours.
Yeah.
That was pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you mentioned that you're working out some of those bugs in the car. What were some of the bugs? Because obviously you really are blazing an entirely new path for off-roading as, a whole. The whole independent car in the full-size world has never really been done until you guys really started getting that ball rolling. There's a few others out there, but, whenever I think of that, I think of you guys first. What were some of the trials that y'all had as you guys were building this car?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, like I see on the chassis, we didn't realize, but everything was built too thin. I mean, even the drive shafts were built out of a 90 thou.
Yeah.
And we were Tristan drive shafts. We went through that, and then we had the arms. The lower arms were all too light, and I had Rev 2 built, and then no, they need to be even stronger. So I had Rev 3 built, and the lower A arms finally got strong enough to be able to withstand a rock.
Yeah.
We just recently redid the bulkheads front and rear. What's kind of sucks about Ultra 4 is everyone talks about light. You can't build an Ultra 4 light because you have to build it like a bulldozer.
Right.
You have to be able to smash into a rocket speed. And to be able to smash into a rocket speed, you have to have a bulldozer. So
Yeah.
I just, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
The lower A-arm bolts were 5/8 bolts. We just recently increased those to 3/4-inch bolts.
Ooh.
Portals. We blew up gears. We were blowing up stock gear sets that supposedly no one ever broke.
Yeah.
And I had to go to another manufacturer because the company that makes the portals didn't make the gear sets or have the time to make the gear sets. So I went to Wiseman, who made my transfer case and my front and rear diff. And had them make some custom gears for the portals. That solved that issue. Portals, I can just keep going down the list.
How tall were your portals?
What's that?
How tall were your portals right now?
How tall?
Like what's the offset?
I told you I don't know all that. I don't know. It's like 3 inches.
Okay, yeah,
that's
the only reason I ask is because portals on Razors are getting popular, and they have everything from 4 to like 12. So I was just curious on a 4400 car. I would imagine when you say portals, my brain immediately goes bad idea. But seeing your car and just seeing that, you guys went through the process that I guess you would expect with portals, if you really think about it, is the gears in the portals are probably a weak link. You mentioned that was kind of a continuous struggle. When you guys finally got that fixed, Did it push the problem down the drive line, or were there just other things that were wrong?
Well, the thing is the faster you go, the harder you go, the more that the more fatigued the car gets. So you find out, that bolt isn't strong enough, or like I was saying, the bulkheads aren't strong enough, or the arms aren't strong enough, or the chassis isn't strong enough. So it's just been a constant making things better. I mean, I'm going to get this car to where it doesn't have issues. Jordan Pellegrino just had a car built similar to mine, and he's going through the same things. He should go through it quicker, because I think that's all he does is work on his car and race and do that stuff. So they'll get through, and he has a great team over there. But it's there's a lot of trial and error.
Absolutely.
The diffs in the car, they're diffs that Pro 2s run. I mean, no one in Ultra 4 runs these diffs.
What is what is Pro 2 for our listeners who don't know?
Well, Pro 2, Pro 4, it's a short course. It's those.
Gotcha.
It's what Kyle LeDuc, Rob McCachran run around on the short course. Those cars and jumps and turns.
I was about to say, it's the trucks that fly through the air.
Yeah, they fly through the air and do crazy, just go around turns at a crazy speed. Well, Wiseman makes the disc for that, and the transfer case, and they also make a lot of the parts for trophy trucks. So it's the next level of stuff. The diffs, we actually had a few issues also, because what we didn't realize or what we underestimated is when you go to a portal, the going from the portal to the diff, it spins 2 times faster. So say you're going 100 miles an hour, it's actually spinning 200 miles an hour. It's I don't know if that makes sense, but
it's a gear reduction there.
Yeah, it's a gear reduction, so it made everything spin quicker. So the diff had an unlocking part where it unlocks and locks, but when it's in the rocks, actually I'm going 2 different routes here. We had an issue where the diff would unlock in the rocks, so that took a while to get through, and with the diffs getting hot. But also we had another issue with the gear reduction. That was a whole other deal.
Now,
and then the cooling and.
How'd you guys get the diffs to cool down?
We got the diffs to cool down. What's cool about their diffs is they actually have a pump in it. So
that's cool.
The pump, we just put it through a cooler and a fan, and then back to the diff. And there's this one time we went out and we were all excited. We got the diff back and put it in, and we went a half a mile, and we're like, what the hell's that noise? Well, the pump was put in backwards, so the diff burned. We actually have a diff temp gauge now, because the diff was getting to like 600 degrees.
Oh my
which
god!
Now it runs at 150.
Yeah, there you go.
It's we got through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say is the most frustrating thing you had to deal with on the car? Just the overall strength?
Overall, I think the most frustrating is not being able to drive it. I was the most frustrating. I mean, when I got my bomber, when we put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles on it to just become one with the car, and that car, I mean, I still haven't put a lot of miles on it. It'd be nice to just go put a couple 100 miles on it here and a couple 100 miles on it there, go do the rock trails and go to a race. It's just, we work on it more than we actually get to the ratio of prep and work slash just being able to drive the car have definitely not been in our favor. So I say that'd be the most frustrating part, because the more you get comfortable with the car, the faster you go,
Yeah,
so.
No, I absolutely understand. And that is, I'm sure, that's a super frustrating problem that teams run into, I'm sure all the time. But it sounds like, again, you guys are just going through growing pains with new technology. And, I think that, again, I know you have a ton of support, and I think that you guys will get it nailed down. But on a lighter note, what's your favorite thing about the car? When it's running perfect, what just is that one thing where you just crack a smile?
I think the best part for me on the car is when someone hops in the car that's never been in an Ultra 4, and they get to experience it.
Really?
It's the best part of the whole thing. And then, to fly through the desert at 60, 80 miles an hour over to Chocolate Thunder, and that person has never been even in the rocks.
Yeah.
They've only watched it on TV or went to King of the Hammers, and we go up the rocks and we go back to camp, and you look over and you go, well, what do you think? And they're shaking, or they're like, holy. It's just that. I think that's probably the best part.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine. I can only imagine having that experience too. I know just going up Chocolate Thunder itself would be just, I'm sure, terrifying. We have ledges and stuff, but we don't have rocks like you guys have all the time out there.
I think another good part is when you complete King of the Hammers. That's a really good feeling. I haven't had that feeling for a couple of years now. It's that's a good feeling, and the team and all the effort and time that goes into it. But I've definitely made it a point to not be about just the race. That's why I've created LaserTown and have that distraction, we'll call it, out there.
So I think that's an awesome segue. LaserTown. So, I'm going to let you explain it from the ground up, actually. LaserTown, what is it? Tell me about it.
LaserTown is a place that I'm able to go and do what I want and just get away from it all. It's I've been going to the Hammers for 22 years, and it's great. I mean, I was very fortunate to be able to. One of my acquaintances asked if I wanted to be part of this piece of land about 4 years ago, and I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, there's private property out there. Do you want to be a partner in this with 3 other guys?" And I'm like, "Oh, what's it going to cost me?" He's all $800. I'm like, $800, and
$800.
What's that gonna get me? And I was gonna get us 10 acres. I'm like, what the hell?
Oh
what? I mean, are you blowing smoke, or what? Does this make any sense? And he's like, yeah, I found this land in an auction, and it's gonna close, and blah blah blah, and they want $3,200 for it, and I got 4 other guys, and it'll be $800 a piece. I'm like, all right, cool. So we got the land. And we cleared all the brush off of it, and we decided to make a berm around it, so people knew it was private property. And the craziest thing is, people thought we were crazy. We were doing this on BLM land, which we weren't. We got the corners surveyed and had a place to take our RV and our family out to the Hammers and be safe. Because the worst thing about going camping, to me, so a little more about myself. I'm an introvert. I'm not a crowd person or a party animal or a social butterfly. A lot of people don't get me. They probably, a lot of people think I'm an ass or think I'm rude or anything. I'm not. I do my thing, and it normally it's normally with a small group of people are in my circle or my family, and that's just how I'm made up. But back to LaserTown. So we cleared all the brush, had a great place to camp, and back to camping. I always get anxiety that I'm not going to have a place to camp. So you go out there, and especially at King of the Hammers.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You got to go out there a week ahead of time, and then you don't know if you're going to get that group of people that play music till 3 in the morning and are shooting guns or fires. And people, I guess just the way people are, they love camping right next to other people.
Right.
And I don't camp away from me. So we can have some space.
Yeah, there's all this land out there, and you got to be right next to it.
Right? So it all worked out, and then in typical fashion, I'm one of those guys that likes to do stuff, and I can't sit and do nothing. I either have to be working or driving or something. I have the only time I sit and do nothing is when I get home, which I'm about ready to get home and sit on the couch and enjoy some time with my family and eat dinner, but. So anyways, 2 of the partners, they wanted out, so I had to buy them out. The other partner didn't want to buy them out because for whatever reason, so I bought the other 2 partners out, then I own 75%. And then, in typical fashion, I pissed off my other partner.
Nice.
Or pissed off their wife, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Who pretty much, ran the show. And had to buy him out. So now I own LaserTown, and we just bought another 10 acres, another 10 acres. So we have 30 acres.
Man.
And we put a well in, and the whole canopy. The reason why there's a container with a canopy is one year I had my crew guys come out, set all the tents up, put the sandbags, the carpet, and everything, and we sat down at the fire, and the wind came. It just blew the entire canopy down. And that year we didn't even have a canopy, because I'm saying, this is just not going to work. So we got a couple more containers, and we put the canopy up, and it just kind of evolved. I've always thought the graffiti art is kind of a cool thing, so I was looking for some graffiti artists, and come to find out, graffiti artists are very expensive.
For those again, it's LaserTown JV on Instagram, correct?
Yes.
So if you haven't seen this, it's exactly how he described it. It's essentially just a very deep line in the sand in the shape of a rectangle. He's got a lot of shipping containers out there that he's turned into livable space. But the spray paint and the graffiti he's talking about is beautiful art all over these shipping containers. And it looks like on every corner you've got something. And I think your latest edition was a set of trees. And, man, I'm telling you, I'm actually just sifting through your Instagram right now. It's beautiful. All of the art is excellent.
Yeah, we originally had the kind of the graffiti of LaserTown, and then it evolved to, I asked my daughter what does she wanted my 3.5 cent to T-Rexes, so we put this huge T-Rex on the side of this container.
That's awesome.
My other daughter wanted a cool eye, and everything they want. The trees actually represent, there's 6 trees, and it's myself, Lindsay, my wife, my daughter, Lacey, and Charlie, and then our 2 dogs. And we did a jackalope, and anyways, it kind of has evolved. And then we did some cool flowers that go into the sky, and a 60-foot flagpole with the eye in the sky, a camera on it. So, right now, if I want to see what, because Johnson Valley is like no other place to me. I got 16 cameras out there. I have live feeds to where I can see what's going on and what's, everything that's out there. And we put a weather vane, and then also we just did the container house, which it was quite a project. It's pretty much like building a house. But we put 10 containers together. They're 9'6" high. They're 40 deep. So it's pretty much a 3,200 square foot container house.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it has this great, large room, which is 5 of the containers, no posts, freestanding, huge kitchen, and 5 bathrooms, 4 bedrooms. It's pretty much a house. I mean, you can live there.
And again, just looking at the pictures, we're saying shipping containers and there's livable space inside, but this isn't just what you see in like a kidnapping movie where someone gets thrown in a shipping container. This is you have like stainless steel appliances, wood walls, wood cabinets. You've got everything that you could ever need in there, and it looks amazing on top of that.
Yeah, and if everyone always asks, what are you going to do about break-ins? What are you going to do about the meth guys out there that do drugs and like to break ins and stuff? And if anyone's listening that is worried about that or concerned about it, we have don't try, because it's not going to be good for you.
There you go. Yeah, I would imagine that you have everything you need out there pretty well guarded.
Yeah, it's pretty guarded.
That's exciting though. But just moving on, one of the rooms, or one of the I don't even know how to describe it, areas of LaserTown that is so unique to me is you have an open bay area with red carpet in it. What was your inspiration for that?
That's when the tents, the white tents blew down, and we decided that, I'm not going to put up a tent ever again. We put 3 shipping containers in a U section, and I wanted to make it tall enough to be able to put my RV under. Yeah. We have a bus. I bought a school bus for my wife a few years ago, because she always would smile whenever she see a school bus. And I'm like, why do you smile? I just love school buses. What's a better Christmas present? A school bus, right?
Obviously.
She likes trains too. I've been trying to find a caboose or a passenger car, but that's a little harder to find.
Yeah, I would say so. Well, I know out east we've got a few floating around here in the mountains somewhere. You just drive up on them when you're out in the woods.
That is somehow you got to have a crane to get on a trailer and unload it and all that.
That's true.
But yeah, it's it just involved. I had one shipping container out there. Then we decided to do the canopy. And then we had 4 containers out there. I think now we have 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 containers out there. And I don't know, we got some cool ideas coming up too. Maybe some underground stuff. I'm not a prepper, just so if anyone wants to wonder if I'm a prepper. But it is kind of cool to have a place off the grid out in the middle of nowhere. With what I love about Johnson Valley, and one of my favorite things to do is to make new trails. To go up a canyon that no one's ever been up. That is a lot of fun.
Yeah. So also, and probably most importantly, it looks like you have a pool, or is this a lake?
That's a pond.
Okay.
We originally put the pond in because I had a wash going through my property, and I learned a lot about blocking a wash.
Yeah.
Come to find out, a dry wash they could have a blue line going through it. And what that means is you cannot block the wash.
Wow. Yeah.
So we got rid of the pond that was in the wash, and we moved it to the back where it is now. But we actually have goldfish in there, and I think a koi, and I think they're still alive.
That's amazing.
I guess they live through anything. Come to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard that about goldfish, but that's pretty amazing. But Lasertown was one of those things that on social media, it looks like, exactly what you would think with no explanation. You think this guy's building a survival shelter, but it's way more than that, and it's awesome, and it's really cool art. This is just one of those things that I'm a very big advocate for individualism and just doing what you want to do, and
that's exactly what it is. I go out there, I can shoot my gun.
Yep.
I can go drive a tractor. I can go off-roading. I can go blow up stuff. I can shoot off fireworks. I could do whatever I want. You're in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And it's really cool, especially in California, because you can't do anything in California.
It's true.
So when I'm 150 miles from my house, I'm actually going out there tomorrow and checking all the alarm systems and all the stuff we have set up that we just recently installed, and it's just great to get away from the freeways and the smog and the airplanes and the stupid people that you have to live with. It's good to just get away.
Yeah.
And the best part is my family's comfortable. My daughters love it out there. My wife loves it. Our friends love it, and I made it comfortable to where. It's you don't have to load the RV up and then go out there for 2 days and then come back and unload the RV, and it's so much work to where we made it really comfortable and it's cool. How many people can say they got a container home?
Yeah, that's and not only that, but like you've got your own city in the desert, so that's really amazing. But yeah, so we talked a little bit about your race at King of Hammers, and you said you ended at the second lap this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, just the start of the second lap.
Yeah. And what was the failure again?
An upper pivot bolt. We'll call it a bolt. It was more of a machine piece that we thought that was gonna be fixed, but our fix to it is to double shear it. It is double sheared, and once it's double sheared, the issue is going to be fixed. We should have done that, but we thought we fixed it.
Hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. So what's your race season this year look like? Where are you going to be? Where can people come find you?
This year is going to be quite a year. So King of Hammers is done. The first We Rock competition for rock crawling was this weekend. We got second place.
Congratulations.
Thanks. That's done. In 3 weeks, we have the Ultra 4 Stampede up in Rancho Cordova with them, which I think going to go into that. And then a week after that, I'm going to go to Texas and do another We Rock competition in Mason, Texas, and pick up my kids' buggy. I'm having a Twisted Customs 2-seater buggy, but 30% smaller.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's gonna be really cool.
Yeah. I can't wait to see pictures of it. I'm really excited.
Yeah, we're gonna go do that. So then we'll come back from that, and then we have let's see, we got 3 more We Rock events. Ultra 4. I don't know if I'm gonna go to Mexico. I need to understand how to do that. I'm not really sure on how that works safely wise and all that.
Yeah.
So we'll see on that. But I got Trail Hero, Supercrawl, which if anyone's never heard of Trail Hero, and if you have a Jeep or a buggy, Trail Hero, look it up online. It is the coolest event in Sand Hollow, Utah. It starts on a Wednesday, ends on a Saturday, and it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful. The family will love it, and it's from easy wheeling to extreme wheeling. Even if you have a side-by-side or a K&M or whatever, they have trails for that. It's really cool. It's called Trail Hero. I can't say enough about that event.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm even going to check it out because I would like to make it out to the West sometime here soon. Yeah,
it's a really cool.
So you'll be at Trail Hero, and then where?
Then we might go to Japan. We might ship the moon buggy to Japan after Trail Hero, and I have an invitation to go to Australia to do the Tough Truck Challenge in September. So our calendar's pretty much full.
Yeah, I would say, especially towards the latter end of the year, those are 2 really big opportunities. I'll say it like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, that's just, again, that's amazing. All of what you have planned this year. You had mentioned before that you had wanted to come to the East Coast. Is this something you still would like to do?
Absolutely.
Okay. So obviously,
I haven't known what event to do. You guys got so many events back there. I don't know what one to go to.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do is after we get off the podcast, I'll get in touch with you in the next few days, and I'll get in touch with some people in the Rock Racing series, and I'm going to see. We normally have the East Coast versus West Coast shootout at one point during the season. I know that that's happening this season, and I'll get the information back to you, and hopefully we can see you out here because I know it would be a huge hit, and it'd give you guys a great opportunity to come run some of the toughest hills we have to offer, and it'd be a great chance for the guys out east to see how to actually build a car.
So what car would I bring? The Ultra 4 or the Moon Buggy?
You would probably want to bring the Ultra 4. The name of the game down here in the South is momentum and horsepower. If you can get it going and keep it going, more than likely you'll make it up to the top. But like I said, what I'll do is I'll get in touch with you the next few days, and we'll look at the schedule, and if not this season, I can get in talks and see if we can get something working for next season.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, that's pretty much all I had for you, Cody. Do you have anything else you want to say? Anybody you want to give a shout out to? Anything like that?
Oh, well, I appreciate the time today.
I appreciate your time.
I go back, and one of the reasons why I got back into hardcore rock crawling competitions is the legacy thing, and one of my kids and my 3.5-year-old, she did, if I didn't get back into it, she wouldn't know what I did or how I do. So it's been kind of fun to get back into it. Definitely a little harder the older you get.
I'm sure.
I need to definitely get in better shape. But shout outs. I love all my family and friends and the people that follow. I got a Lasernut. If anyone wants to follow our Instagram or Facebook, I have a Lasernut page, which we make some really cool parts. And if you need anything laser cut or bent, you can go to Lasernut with an S, not a Z. And if you want to follow our racing, you can go to Lasernut Racing. If you want to follow LaserTown, Instagram's LaserTown JV or LaserTown on Facebook. And if you want to follow myself, it's Cody Waggoner, Waggoner on my Facebook, or on Instagram it's Cody Waggoner _Lasernut. And yeah, that's pretty much. I try to post every day, and just kind of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and try to live, eat, and breathe off-road, Ultra 4, rock crawling, and as long as I can do it, and there's only so many more years there'll be, and
yeah,
then I'll be in a wheelchair. So
yeah, absolutely. And for those, I cannot recommend following him on social media enough. He does a great job. He's always posting pictures of what's going on, and you even might catch a sneak peek of something coming up in the works. So, Cody, it's been amazing to talk to you today. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to, after we get off the podcast, schedule some time to meet you in the middle of the season or after the season, and us just catch up and do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one other thing I'd like to say is, which we really didn't touch on, is RC cars. If kids or adults or anyone, if you can't afford a full size car, hit up Axial. I've had a really great relationships with Axial Horizon Hobbies, and you can have a crap load of fun with a little RC car. Actually, you can almost have more fun because you can share it with your kids or your friends, and you can do it in your backyard or out at the desert or mountains or wherever. But they're a lot of fun.
So I don't talk a lot about it actually, but my 5-year-old and I, we actually. She has an SEX10 by Axial, and I actually run a Bomber, and I really love both of them. And I follow UC Fab on Instagram as well, and I saw that he actually built you some cars. And if you guys don't follow him, give him a look, because it's basically a 1/10 version of both of the Lasernut race vehicles, and they're amazing. And I actually was going to ask you, you got a hold of that miniature 4400 car, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. I have one.
How did that work for you? Going from the big one to the little one, it really is, almost as much fun. It's a little fun in a different way. It's great. I love my Bomber, but having your custom car built into a custom miniature version, how cool is that?
It was pretty cool. I didn't, what I try to do is every car I have built or I buy, I like to get an RC version or smaller scale so I can put it on the shelf. And the joke is once I get that car, then I sell it. so the Ultra 4 I haven't sold yet, but I don't plan on selling it for a while. And the Moon Buggy, same thing. But it's just something that I have all the cars that I've had built on the shelf, and it's cool to look back at them because you can't keep all your cars. You have a garage or a shop full of cars, so it's really cool. And there's some really cool things coming up that will be coming up in 2020. That's all I can say. But
that's exciting.
There's some cool stuff. So
and that's Axial Racing, AXIAL, for those who want to look it up. I can't recommend it enough. Me and my stepdaughter, we love it. It's a great thing for us to do, and I'm really glad that you mentioned that.
Cool, man.
So is that it? Anything else?
Yeah, I think I'm good. I think I need to go eat something.
Okay, cool. Well, hey, we did an hour and a half, and I feel really good about it. And I just want to let you know how thankful I am you took the opportunity to talk to me today. And I'm sure that everyone listening loves it. And we're looking forward to next time we get to talk to you, Cody. And,
anytime, man. I'm like I said, I'm an open book. I'm a straightforward, straight shooter as it is, and people either like it or they don't. So that's how I roll.
All right, Cody. I appreciate it, and I'll let you go. Thanks again, man.
Okay, have a good one. Thanks.
You too. Thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, go to our Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, whatever it is. We have links to our contest. Make sure you guys sign up. We're going to be giving away a whole bunch of stuff at the very end of the racing season. And subscribe so we can give you more content better. Thanks for listening today. See you guys next time.